I'm here with my brother, Warren Tingen. Here, we'll share the screen for a minute. And so Warren is the graphic designer, the brilliant mind behind the Tingen Law logo and the rebrand that we've done. Very much appreciate your work on this.
Thank you.
And
you're welcome.
Yeah. So what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today is, where do you get creative ideas, and how, these two broad topics. Where do you get creative ideas? And then how do you help guide business owners maybe who aren't creatives or don't have the design or branding experience that you do towards the decisions that make sense? So maybe you could kind of give me the brief answer, and then we can dig into those topics.
All right. Well, inspiration for things. One of my favorite teacher in the first time I went to college, my advertising teacher, one of the things he said was, in order to drink from the reservoir, you had to fill the reservoir. And so as a creative, I think you constantly are in the process of filling that reservoir, and you're constantly in the process of draining that reservoir. So you're always looking at trends or things like that nature, and you're looking at things on the internet or things in real life as you're traveling. There isn't a time in my family, it drives them crazy when we're at a movie or something like that, and I'm like, oh, that was an interesting font choice, for the credits that are rolling by. And so you're honestly, you get to a point where you're just constantly looking for inspiration. And that's one of the, especially in the creative dialogue right now that I'm hearing, is when you're always creating regardless of when you're thinking about it. So your subconscious is always dragging something with it as you're thinking about other things. You're mowing the lawn and you see a butterfly flit by, and suddenly you have this spark of inspiration, and you're like, oh, well, this is going to make this logo better, and you try to write those down or whatever. So those sparks of creativity happen. They happen at the worst times and at the best times, because you'll be in the shower where you don't have a notepad, where you can't draw or something like that, or you're driving and so you're yelling at your phone, hey Siri, do X, Y, and Z, write a note. So I'm always in the process of looking for inspiration, whether it's online or wherever, for a specific project. When I'm looking for inspiration, I look at other organizations, and then, say for your business right now with the law firm, I looked at other law firms in that rebranding, and looked at how they approach the visual aspects and other aspects of their brand, their website, their collateral, their colors, their font choices, those things. And then we talked about what those things meant to those brands, and then what you were wanting to relay to your clients, to your employees, to the general public as they encountered your brand.
Yeah, because a brand is about communicating, right? You're trying to say a certain message. Right.
That is what brands should be telling. Is that there's a individual, Marty Neumeier, he talks about brand. Brand isn't your brand isn't what you say it is, it's what they say it is.
That's cool. I like that.
And so when you develop your brand, you're trying to align your vision, your purpose, your thing, your thoughts about your brand to your audience. And you can influence that, but you can't fully create that image in their heads. So you have to just massage that and hope that they see it the same way you do.
I like that. And I like what you said about filling the reservoir. Interestingly, the interior designer who helped us with this space and the rebrand, I remember visiting with her at one point, and she had just interior design and architectural magazines laying around everywhere. And I was all like, she's always looking at this kind of thing, always trying to figure out what works, because for her, it personally intrigues her. And for you, it's the same way. You're always looking at things, whether it's a movie, that's a fun font, or a web page, or a flyer. And so that's a good thing. You're refining that eye just kind of as your habit.
Right. And then also at the same time, like your interior designer, she's probably looking at other things besides that to influence her as well. So especially I worked for the hospital, we would look at a lot of retail stuff because healthcare, honestly, in the United States is becoming more retail focused. They want it now. They want it this way. They want the customer, there's a lot of customer satisfaction that has to be involved with it now, based on rules and regulations that the government has employed and some other things. And it's more of a value-based thing now than just I'm going to the doctor to see about my cold. It's more about that whole experience. So we looked to retail for some inspiration in certain regards. We also looked to other things. So you never know where you're going to find that spark of inspiration. And look at the great minds of branding. They'll look at something and then let's look at these two diametrically opposed type of brands, and they can come together in this new brand and have some new nuance to it.
So let me ask you a question about that. So in terms of, I really like how the example you gave of a hospital looking at retail marketing to inform its own marketing.
Yeah.
When do you find that to be helpful for brands? Because for me, I would say that our marketing approach is non-traditional for law firms, and I think law firms need to evolve more and better. So,
for sure.
Especially in terms of their marketing. And so, how do you evolve properly? Is I guess the question. How can you make sure you're looking at the right kind of external examples?
Well, to make it an organic thing, that is a tough question, honestly. Like I said, you have to fill the reservoir. You have to have a lot of things, and then that spark of creativity, that spark of imagination comes into play, where you go, oh, well, these can fit together in a new and unique way, and they'll synergize in such a way that, and I hate to use that word, but it's such a good word.
Synergize.
They'll synergize in such a way that really pushes that promotion. Like when we did, there was an ad set that we did, and I pitched, the writer and we pitched this idea that we were just going to show the injuries that we were going to help in this one ad for our urgent care ad. And so that was what we took pictures of. We went around and we took pictures of a soccer injury, or we took pictures of someone in their pajamas with a cold on a business trip. We took pictures of my daughter, her knees as she was banged up. We set up some scrapes and stuff. So we showed, here's the problem and here's our solution. More retail kind of thing rather than, the happy people that are post whatever trauma that they've experienced that is generally normal for ads of that type, or hospital type ads where it's like all the people are happy, they all wear the same sweaters, they're all in the same season, they're all it gets very I think we've talked about this before. Stock art gets a little more
stock art can get a little boring sometimes.
So we tried to bring that and put more real people,
an air of authenticity
and just what people were like, because urgent care at that time was new for this hospital that we're working with. It was, communicating what you said earlier, communicating to our audience, this is what we take care of. We take care of your sniffles right now, immediately. We take care of those bumps and bruises, immediately. We take care of that soccer injury, immediately. So it's just showing the problem and giving the solution. And it's always fun to imagine those kind of things.
Do you ever storyboard out? Do you ever storyboard out like an idea or a design or an ad? Because what was interesting to me, what you were just sharing, was instead of a family with text, it's a very static advertisement. It doesn't, it's not telling a story, but you're telling me, oh, bumps and bruises, we got you on that, a cold, you'll be better, and we've got the solution. And so there's an element of storytelling to that kind of advertising. So how does story influence you in design? And I know that you like good stories.
Yeah.
I know that you enjoy like role playing and those kinds of things. So how does storytelling influence your advertising work?
Well, storytelling is vital to giving the message, because stories hit us differently when, as humans, we won't remember general details. If you gave me like facts and figures, I'm not going to remember those.
Right.
But if you tell me the story about your dog and how it went into the creek and broke its leg and then you got it out, I could retell that story 20 years from now. Now, I might not get every last detail, but I'll get the crux of the story. So if we're telling a story to an audience, they're going to remember those details, and they'll attach your visuals
brand
to it, your brand to it. And I mean, that's obviously the hope. But so good storytelling, great storytelling is what you want to accomplish with any kind of advertisement, those kind of things, and your brand in general. You want to tell a good story that, like your law firm, we've got superior client
experiences. That's the story we want to create.
That's the story we're going to tell, and we're telling that story by you're coming into our office, you're met with a smile, with friendliness. They're getting that in return. They're going to ship your case. We're going to take care of it. Your lawyers are friendly and courteous, and they continue to tell that story, and then they have a successful case. That story reaches its climax. You have a finality, and you have those proof of concept kind of things where you've finished that story and then you continue to tell it time and time again.
That's interesting because, and I hope this doesn't get too far afield of where we're going, right? But have you heard of the hero's journey?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So this is a storytelling technique, famously, I think, or the internet says famously, that Disney keeps the hero's journey posted on their writer's room wall. And you can find this if you just Google hero's journey. You'll find lots of iterations and ideas about what it contains. Star Wars is a classic hero's journey. The Matrix is a hero's journey.
Yeah, right.
Lots of hero's journeys out there, right? And so what's interesting is people see themselves in the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a story of people overcoming adversity, overcoming a challenge, returning home and being different and changed from where they started, who they were at the start. They're in the same place, but they're a different person. And so they have changed. And so I think it's interesting that obviously when you're advertising to somebody, you're saying you need this story to be part of your life. Like for me, for legal services, we've got the immigrant story, which is a kind of hero's journey, in real life. Yeah. And so these people expect to have a new home here in the U.S., but I think they expect the home to change, but they also will change through this journey. And what we have to do in our marketing is tell them that, hey, this story will come true for you as well. It's a little predictive in how you market to groups. Is like, well, this family is now happy because of this product or service. Yeah. You will be happy because of this product or service. So I think that's fascinating.
And it goes back to that same thing, is that the best hero's journey stories, or the best stories period, is when the audience is the hero, or the audience is so immersed that they are part of the story. They're a subject.
The hero was inside us all along.
Right. The hero's inside of us all along, or they played a bit part in the story. They helped the hero get to that next leg, and they were the Argonauts helping Jason get to wherever he was going. So.
Yeah. So that's storytelling, branding. How do you help business owners? How do you point them in the right direction? How do you help a business owner maybe who doesn't come from a marketing or design background or even a storytelling background recognize their story and put it into a brand identity? Like, how do you do that?
Well,
how's that possible?
Honestly, I think the first part is they need to be brave. They need to be courageous. And my hope is that when a business individual or leader or whatever comes to me and asks for my assistance to help them manage their brand, that they're a little scared, but they're being brave. They're being courageous about it, because in order to jump into that next leg, you have to say, okay, I'm going to let go of a little control of this and see where it goes.
Right. I like what you said. They need to be a little scared.
Yeah.
So when you start a company, when you start a business, it's just you.
Right.
And each time you add somebody new, internally or externally, like hiring you as an external consultant or guide, it can be scary because you're letting go of some of that control. How does a business owner delegate well to you? What can they do in terms of how they communicate with you?
Well, when we talk about brand, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I like to know how your business functions, what and who your competitors are, who are your clients, those kind of things, so that I get an underlying of what your current story is. So we talk about the story. What is your current story? And then how do we elevate it? How do we take it to that next level? And then by collaborating, I don't want this to be a silo of me. I want this to be us talking about this, because this is your business. At the end of the day, I'm going to take a step back, but you're living with this for an extended period of time. And I want you to be, one, part of the process, and two, integral to the process.
So that's one, I mean, and I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. That was one of the things that I thought was one of the bigger value adds of hiring you with our brand redesign, is the time you took to not just design, but to consult, to provide an extra pair of eyes or an extra set of thoughts about different aspects. The time you took to look into other firms, the time that you looked at, well, this is what law firms are doing. How does your new direction jive with the story that you want to tell? And so I found that there was a lot of value in that. I thought that was really great. Why do you do that? Where did that come from?
I think part of it comes back to the whole filling a reservoir. We talked about that earlier, where if you've only got one faucet going to the reservoir, it's going to take it forever to fill up. But if we've got the understanding of one faucet with the competitors, one faucet with your clients, one faucet with your internal workings, you're going to fill that reservoir a little faster, and you're going to be able to come up with unique ways. And I would be coming into your business afresh. So I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
Don't play one on TV. I'm not that kind of thing. So I
Better
don't
call Warren.
I don't know no law, and I don't know your clients as intimately as you do.
Right.
So you have to help me. You have to tell me your story so that I can then help elevate that story.
So, but what about business owners who are just bad at storytelling? So I feel like I do okay telling stories, right? And we come from a family of storytellers, right?
That's fair.
Some tell taller stories and tales than others, right? But what about a business owner who's like, you know what? I just want to run my restaurant. I don't want to think about stories and marketing, or I just want to run my engineering firm.
Well, and this, I'm going to disagree with you, brother. I think people may say I'm not good at storytelling. It's the same thing as I'm not creative. I can't stand that because people are creative.
People are naturally creative.
You're naturally creative in your own sphere of experience. You create. Everyone creates. It's one of my favorite Pixar movies is Ratatouille, where he's like, everyone can cook.
Anyone can cook.
Anyone can cook, but only the great, only the brave, only the
right
will be great. So
that's fair. I do think that people who feel like they can't tell stories are actually pretty good at it.
Yeah. They just have that fear that they're, something is there that they're not that great at it.
Well, so how do you get them past that fear so that you can help them tell that story?
Well, like I said, you should be a little afraid at the beginning.
you should. So fear is good.
Fear is good. Fear is a motivator. It's always been a motivator for humans. It's very motivating to us. It propels us to do things or to strive to be greater or to strive for that next arm rung or whatever. So you should have some fear, but you should also, there's somebody that says courage is not being afraid, but it's being able to overcome your fear. So I can't remember who said, so I'm paraphrasing. I know it's pretty bad, but that's the case. We're all afraid in some aspect in our social anxiety or in social settings or in building a business or rebuilding a brand. So we should be a little bit afraid, but just my thing is I'm here to help. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to ridicule. I'm here to help you take that next leg up on the mountain that you're growing on. So yes, be a little bit afraid. There are some things that we should be afraid of, but we can address those together. We can address those and make sure that we're taking risks that are calculated, that are good, and that are thought out and planned, so that we're not just looking at the precipice and Is that 10 yards? Is that 20 yards that we have to jump? No, here's a rope bridge. Let's just cross it together.
No, I think that a lot of business owners probably appreciate that kind of approach. So we've talked about where these creative ideas come from, and I really like your concept of you have to fill the reservoir. And then I really liked how you said, well, how do you help business owners? How do you help businesses tell the story? And your answer is kind of the same, like, well, we're going to fill a joint reservoir
Right.
and then we can drink from it together to tell the story, which is really great. So how once a business has a story to tell, then what are your next steps?
Well, the next steps for the business is,
Well, for you, I was really interested in what do you do, or is this
okay.
related?
No, I mean, for us, once we've gathered our data, we'll go back and look at that. And depending on how we've been engaged with our clients, if we're just designing the brand identity, we'll go back and start sketches and things of that nature and begin fleshing out the ideas of the visuals, those colors, font choices, and those kind of things. If we're engaged in more than just the brand identity in helping develop the culture, we look at, okay, what are your processes now? How is that currently managed inside? And for your business, you decided to do a full rebrand in kind of all aspects of your in your business environment too.
Right.
So the colors that we have around here are infused from the color palette that we chose. So humans were always impacted by our environments just as much as we impact it too. And as we develop those environments, we, can relax into them or whatever as we build those environments. So part of the process is going back and, making that process for the employees. What is it? How is management going to engage with the employees? How are the employees going to engage with management? How are the employees going to engage with the staff on the outside? Not staff, but clients on the outside. What do all those processes look like, and how can we improve them? A lot of places have those processes that just haven't addressed them in a couple of years, or
Right.
they haven't looked at them as they've grown. It was really good when they had 5 employees, but now at 20 or 100, they don't function as well. So we look at those processes beyond that, and just managing that whole business environment, that whole experience, because that experience comes from leadership through the organization and down into your clients and customers.
Let me ask you a question that has popped in my head while I'm listening to you. Because when I talked about what are the next steps in telling that story, and you talked about clients, but also internally, what's more important, internal marketing to your employees or external marketing to your clients and customers? Or do you consider it all one and the same in a way, like they're equally important, they inform each other? Like, give me what you...
I think they're equally important because, for example, the hospital that I worked at, neighbors treating neighbors was kind of the slogan. And as a healthcare organization, the community you serve includes the employees you serve because they live in that community. So you do yourself a disservice as a business if you're not treating your employees as well as you treat your customers. So your employees could potentially be customers, and they could be your worst detractors or your greatest cheerleaders. So you've got to make sure that all aspects across that customer journey, we say hero journey, but customer journey.
Yeah.
So we're putting the customer in those hero spots. We have to make sure all aspects of that journey are good, that the hero gets those helpers, those advocates, the sidekick or whatever,
Right.
to help them, complete the journey. And it's hard for, if the employees aren't enamored in that storytelling or embedded in that storytelling, then it's hard for them to be that sidekick or whatever, because they're less engaged, less happy, less willing to facilitate that.
So I really liked one of the things you said about your employees can be some of your biggest proponents. They can talk about you and rave about you as the employer, or they can bag on you, frankly.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting to me in that is one of the things we've revamped recently is our sales process and looking online. HubSpot has an excellent guide on developing your own sales process. And one of the graphics that they have available is this kind of customer delight flywheel. And it talks about how customers start out as strangers, then they become customers. And then the idea is to turn them from a stranger into a promoter. And employees are the same way. If you have employees who are excited to come to work because they like the environment, and that is internal branding in a way, then, we frequently get clients just from our employees who are like, yeah, no, totally come here. And you might think, well, that would happen anyway. They're employed there. Well, not if they don't like it, not if they don't trust you, right? Like,
right.
And so I absolutely think that there are, back to synergies again, good synergies between those things. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you look at it too. Hypothetical situation. You look at someone and you say, what do you do for a living? And they're like, I'm a tax accountant. Well, okay, they may not like where they're at. If they said, oh, I work for Ernst & Young, you're like, oh, they're a tax accountant and they enjoy where they work for, who they work for. So I imagine your employees, hopefully they all go, well, I work for Tingen Law. We're a great immigration firm. We help people, make their cases. And that's
they tell me that they like it, but I'm the boss. So
yeah. And that's one of the hard things. It's like, I've always wondered about that in the business environment, and what is the level of truth and honesty between employees and management. They do anonymous surveys, but when you have an anonymous survey of 8 people, it's kind of hard to be anonymous, or something of that nature. So it's there's a fine balance you have to do there. But I think if you create a good environment, it's hard to dislike a good environment, honestly.
Right.
I mean, if you've got, like, one of my philosophies as far as employment goes, if you've joined my team, I want to help you grow and develop. And if there's a point that you've gotten to where you felt you've learned everything you can from me and the team, and I want you to come to me and say, hey, I've developed as far as I can. Can you help me get to that next leg? And I'm going to be more than overjoyed to say, yes, let's move you to, or I will write a letter of recommendation, or, hey, I just got promoted to the chief branding officer of Nike. I'll be like the first one to cheer you on.
Good for you, yeah.
Heck yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. I'm glad we helped you make that step, because I want to be part of their journey as well, not just the client's journey. I want to be a proponent, a stepping stone for my employees.
For your employees as well.
Journey as well. Because, I mean, we're living to 70, 80, 90 years now. And, people in this generation don't stay with organizations like they did with our parents and things of that nature, where they stayed with an organization for
30 years, 40 years.
And so you should be more than willing to be that next stepping stone to help them on that next leg of their journey. Yeah. Because if you've helped them, there's, the general law of reciprocity. They're going to, they were great, they helped me out, I'm going to send a client their way, or
I absolutely believe in karma in that regard.
Yeah. So totally. It goes back to the storytelling. You've got to help people be the heroes to their own story.
Well, and then I also think that just because you have a rebrand and you decide on a story you want to tell, and it's a good story, it's a true story, right? I mean, that's what makes a story powerful, right? That it's legitimately yours, true, and it belongs to you and your business. But one of the things that I also think is important is the story we tell by the actions we take today. And so I think it's interesting to conceptually envision, for example, that marketing isn't done just because you printed the flyers and handed them out, right?
Right.
Marketing continues. It continues in how you continue to interact. Your story is still being told. And so marketing well means consistently performing well from here into the future.
And marketing, I mean, people, and it's the same way with brand. People are like, oh, your brand is your logo, or your brand is your colors. And it's so untrue. Marketing marketing is everything. I mean, marketing is your front door staff is marketing for you the moment they meet that client or that customer. They're doing marketing, and if they have a good experience, they've marketed well. If they have a bad experience, they've marketed poorly. So that marketing experience goes across the breadth of your organization, and even the CEO needs to be, out there marketing well.
Let me ask you something about that. So conceptually, as I've kind of reorganized my business and processes and marketing and branding and all of that, so I have in my brain, and maybe I'm still learning, and there are maybe lots of different ways to look at this. Right? Lots of different ways to look at this and conceptualize it. So in my brain, there is this idea that so marketing versus sales. What's the difference? I would consider both to be under branding. And so when people come through the door, they're marketing, but we're right at that point. When somebody's through the door, they've reached out. We're in the sales game. And so how does marketing enhance the sales process? What's, in your view, the difference between marketing and sales? How can you and Tingen Creative help to increase sales and help with that sales process, that sales piece?
Well, I think marketing and sales should go hand in hand. If you're bad at sales, you're bad at marketing.
So in sales, you still have to be telling a story, right?
Yeah, you still have to be telling a story, and you have to tell it well. You don't want to dilute or destroy the experience they had coming into your brand. Again, it goes back into marketing is everything. Marketing is everything. When you're in the customer journey, that first touch point, the last touch point, and all the touch points in between have to be marketing to that client or that customer. And the way...
Yeah, a good sales process normally ends with an additional contact, which is part of marketing, which then restarts hopefully a new sales cycle. And
that's building customer loyalty, those kind of things. So you want to retain those customers, because everything that talks about sales and marketing is like retaining customers is cheaper than getting a new customer.
So and I think it's interesting. We're talking about this, and you roll it in kind of together, sales and marketing, but they are two completely different animals, correct?
Yeah, they are. They are two different animals.
Are they like brother or sister, or more like cousins?
I would say they're brother and sister. Sales, obviously, you're trying to complete that transaction.
Yeah.
Marketing is more about, creating interest in your brand.
Right.
So you said earlier, brand is kind of the overall thing, and this is my philosophy too. That brand is the overall thing because it touches, and it should infuse every aspect of your business. Your brand should be known and understood by your salespeople, should be understood by your HR people, should be understood by your marketing, your staff, your front door, your everybody should have that stitched in their hearts and in their minds.
So here's a question for you.
Shoot.
How do you get the brand into everybody's heart and mind?
Well, for bigger organizations, it's definitely a much harder.
It can be a challenge.
Yeah, right. It can be a much harder and challenging thing. For smaller organizations like your own, how did you develop that? You had a big meeting with your team, and you said, "This is what we're going to be doing."
That's true.
This is, and when it's 100 people, you could probably still pull that off in a big group meeting. But you look at those larger organizations that do these kind of brand meetings, like Apple, for example. They have a big meeting where they bring in all the employees and they say, "This is what we're unveiling. This is how we're doing it." And other good organizations that do really fantastic jobs with their brand, they bring those people together. They explain that, because you can't tell a story that you don't know.
That's true. Well, so let me jump on that, because you mentioned, I mentioned this earlier. I brought my team together. I said, this is our brand. This is what we're doing. These are our colors. This is the logo. This is what it means. Right. This is who we are. Superior client experiences. Boom. Even with a small organization, it's a challenge to get everybody to really, truly get it. And so I guess my question is how long do you think it takes for an organization to truly understand it, to get that buy-in? How would you propose, like, let's say, okay, you've been working with an organization. a team of people, or maybe even just one person, maybe the CEO or small business owner. Now they've got to get buy-in with their whole organization. How would you propose they do it?
Well, I think it rolls into a previous conversation that you and I had, where you talked about, okay, here are the constraints of our brand.
The constraints.
Here are the constraints of our brand. You can do anything you want inside of these constraints. And it goes back to that, my definition of creativity is being able to come up with unique solutions within the constraints that you're given, within those limitations. Seth Godin talks about limitations in a recent blog post that I read, and how limitations are good, are a good thing. I mean, you look at an artist when he's beginning or he or she is beginning a painting on a limitation. They're putting on a piece of canvas. The limits of the canvas are that limitation. So, and then the pigments that they use or whatever, and then their imagination, they decide on whatever picture they're making. But what you said to me earlier was that you gave your employees this opportunity to use their own creativity. Again, everybody's creative within the confines that they find in their experience in their life.
Right.
So you gave them the freedom to make some choices within the brand,
to decorate their own office.
to decorate within the brand that you've created here, that we've created here. And so that immediately gives your employees ownership.
Yeah.
So they're like, I have a little piece in this. Now it's mine. And that's when they internalize it. It's my brand rather than, and we said it earlier, if someone asks what you do, you say, well, I'm a lawyer at Tingen Law, or they say, I'm a lawyer.
Right. No, I like what you said, by giving them a piece of the brand or allowing them to help create part of the brand.
Right.
I think that's fascinating. A lot of like neurons are firing right now as I'm connecting different pieces between business operations and business branding and kind of communicating this whole piece.
Well, and it also goes back to speaking about the fear. You've got to be a little afraid to take that next step.
You got to be vulnerable.
Yeah, you've got to be vulnerable. And allowing, and it is a scary thing to allow your employees to say, I'm going to dictate an element of this brand. But every one of your employees should be a brand steward of your brand. They
should be empowered.
Right, empowered to enact something within this brand. And I think that's all. Honestly, I think a lot of what we lack in the business environment is a lot of empowerment, a lot of freedom to give our employees the chance to, expand on that brand. We shouldn't be so rigid.
Make choices within creative constraints.
Right. Because we shouldn't be so rigid that we can't let it evolve organically. And if we don't let it evolve, it's going to die.
Yeah, and that's not what you want.
Because you look at any plant, and I use this analogy in a previous conversation, we put a seed in a small plant, and then we transplant that to a larger pot, and then then finally, if it's a tree, it goes, and there's not a sidewalk that I've experienced in America here where a tree hasn't busted up the cement, because it's grown outside of its constraints. So, in order to grow, yes, we need to facilitate it and take care of it with these smaller spaces, but we need to give it bigger and bigger spaces and, caretake it, be a good steward of that brand, not just the brand police, where one organization that I worked with was like the brand police. And I was like, that sounds so,
Right.
What is it? Punitive.
The brand police.
The brand police.
Yeah, you wouldn't want brand police. You'd want brand advocates, right?
Brand advocates.
And you would want to turn everybody
into a brand
like you
advocate.
Think of grammar Nazis. You don't want grammar Nazis running around.
You don't want a brand Nazi either.
You don't want a brand Nazi running.
People
Nazis
just want to
equals
punch
bad, right?
Punch Nazis. So.
Yeah. So I think that helping employees buy into a brand is important. That's a good call.
Yeah, it gives them ownership. It gives them it. They're like, this is a piece of me is within this brand, and there's nothing more thrilling than having a piece of yourself with something that you've helped grow.
Yeah, well, and I would also say though, it does help when your brand is cool. So
granted,
I like the logo you made. I think
It
that you
can't
did a
be in
great
Comic
job.
Sans or anything like that. I will completely
Yeah.
bag on Comic Sans for
If
the
you had
rest of my
sent
life.
me a logo with Comic Sans as the font, I'd have been like, yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna hire somebody else, man.
And I would totally tell you to do that
You would
because that's
understand.
awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for chatting about brand and marketing and storytelling.
Yeah.
I hope that your business as you go forward in this coming year is just awesome.
Well, I'm hoping to continue to tell my story and continue to build on it with helping others confront those fears and take that next step to build their brand and push for those next legs of growth.
Cool. Thanks, Warren. What I wanted to say is if you do need help with your brand, you can reach out to Warren Tingen at tingencreative.com. He did an excellent job for us here at Tingen Law. We are brothers, and that's how I knew him. But Warren has his own design firm, has been doing excellent work, and I wish you the best with your excellent work with all your other clients as well.
And if you need legal services or some immigration services, my brother's
Here we
definitely the
are.
guy to go to
Yeah.
for that. Here in the Richmond area or anywhere in the United States, I imagine, to help you out.
Thanks.